Hi, this is Dr. Moby. I'm reporting today because we have great guests from Texas University visiting and studying Pakistan. So we're gonna interview each of them one by one.
And this is okra. And you like vegetables? That's for you. And you know your spices. Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. That's right. I know.
Okay. So how's everybody doing? I'll ask now. Okay. So tell me how things are going so far for you all with whatever symposium are you attending, right?
Phenomenal so far.
Okay.
It hasn't started yet, unfortunately, but we took the day today to go explore DC, and then this opportunity to explore a little bit more of Pakistani culture, so we can represent that nation more accurately.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. So why Pakistan? Why did you choose Pakistan?
So interestingly enough, we were assigned Pakistan by NMUN, but I think it is one of the better nations to represent in that sort of competition because Pakistan takes very nuanced stances on a lot of issues that other countries tend to take a somewhat common approach on. So it really requires a lot of work to represent Pakistan.
Okay, well, that's pretty good. So, did you have to study about it? Like, did you have to?
There was a lot of research that went into it. It was like, we met, how many weeks total? 5, 6?
5-6 weeks of
And we
research.
spent the entire time, or at least half of those, researching, and then all the research on our own, and then put all that into a position paper. Was a lot of information, knowing all the different statistics and everything.
And so, what are the resources? Did you find it helpful for you?
CIA World Fact Book.
Okay.
That one was a huge one.
Okay.
But also just kind of going to like some of the countries' websites, the actual like embassy website and everything, the diplomatic mission to the UN, stuff like that were the biggest resources.
And that's huge. They have, if you go on to Pakistan's permanent mission to the United Nations, they have statements that have been released by the ambassadors. And I think that's a really crucial part of the research process because it's one thing to understand the geopolitical phenomenon going on or the social phenomenon going on factually, but then it's another thing to understand how Pakistan portrays those issues and how Pakistan represents themselves in relation to those issues. And that's where the statements from the UN are so valuable because that's how the diplomats are literally speaking to the General Assembly and you have the transcript.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Okay.
Yes, we each had our own committee to focus on. Mine was ECOSOC, and we had to find out. Fortunately, Pakistan was the head chair of my committee until a few months ago, roughly. So we had a lot of insight into their way of running things with the committee, and I think that would be advantageous going into conference.
So tell me, what are some of the other committees you had more interest in, or in?
Could you repeat that?
So I say, were the other committees more interesting to you than your own assignment?
I would say they all have their own special way. It honestly depends on what you're into or what you stand for personally.
Okay.
So I was more flexible with mine. Being an officer, I just got something, but I did enjoy the research I got to do on the topics.
Okay, very nice.
And it's really interesting to see how COVID has made such an impact on United Nations procedures going forward.
Going forward. Yeah. So anybody else wants to say anything about their committee?
I'll say this. I know I've been talking a lot, but
No, I like
I
it.
think I've learned a lot about the General Assembly to deal with like nuclear armaments and weapons trade and stuff like that. And Pakistan's position is very, very fascinating on that front because you have to deal with the problem in India, between Pakistan and India, and then also Pakistan is one of the only member states that alleges discrimination in the application of foreign treaties related to disarmament and restricting weapons trade. So, like, GA1 is definitely for Pakistan one of the more unique committees that you could be on, for sure,
Oh, okay.
in my opinion.
Okay, great. We were catching up on the other committees. Anybody wants to share their experience with the other committees?
So my plan was, of course, I have to try to package.
Yeah, pardon me. Jasmine and I really enjoyed doing the high-level political forum for Pakistan as well, because it allows us to sort of get into sort of the nitty-gritty of sort of mixing some of the domestic issues that Pakistan faces, like with terrorism and with their own election and personal security, and sort of broadening that into the international scale and seeing what sort of multi-level cooperation can do to solve problems both at home in Pakistan as well as abroad in other nations that are developing and having those same issues.
Okay.
I'm representing the Republic of Philippines in GA1, and we're talking about disarmament and denuclearization, and how a collective effect is the only way it would help everyone, because if a country denuclearizes, it is just like a goat for other countries. So yeah, it's more like a collective effort, and the best part about researching this was how much I agreed with the stance that Philippines has, and so I think that was more enjoying.
More enough.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So anybody else wants to share there?
I'm in GA3 for Republic of Philippines, but I have to say, when I was reading through position papers and other research for other member states, just trying to get an idea of what I wanted to talk about. GA3 is more domestic issues, human trafficking, digital privacy. Pakistan has had a really good history of a multilateral effort and going towards an international agreement, and they do really well with pushing for that. And it was just it was helpful to see that there were other member states that could be reached to achieve that group effort. So it actually really helped when I was drafting a resolution, when all delegates were drafting a resolution. It actually really helped.
Okay, great. Anybody else?
Yes, I am with Keaton on the HLPF committee, and I feel like the research, the Pakistan website itself was really helpful, because we got to go in and we got to see literally everything from the mission to specific meetings, and it was really helpful, and it definitely helped aid in our paper itself.
Okay, very nice. Anybody else?
I'm doing Philippines GA1, the other part, which is information technology and communications. And one part that was really interesting was that even though information technology in the context of international crime has to do with a lot of cyber threats, and how that's typically seen as something that impacts digital infrastructure and causes loss of money, it's also an issue that touches on human rights a lot, which deals with how citizens in a lot of developing countries are being abused online, sexually, and having to do with terror attacks, which is something I didn't know about or really realize for a long time. And just reading the permanent mission to the UN from the Philippines made that super clear and really interesting and enjoyable.
Okay, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure knowing all these. I did not know anybody. It's really looking more into deep all these websites. Thank you. So, anybody else wants to join?
Oh yeah, so I'm a high-level political forum on behalf of the Philippines, and so Courtney said that how we talked about how we have to look at other countries' position papers and what they're doing in the realm of sustainable development. It was interesting to see how Pakistan was really a kind of a leader relative to its size in terms of promoting renewable energy such as solar, and kind of leading that charge in the region in terms of sustainable development.
Very nice. Sir, you?
I'm Courtney's partner, also representing the Philippines, but I did enjoy seeing the different relations between Asiatic countries, specifically Pakistan and the Philippines, obviously. And I do love the strong positions that they've taken against human trafficking, both Pakistan and the Philippines.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So, Manzoor, anything you want to suggest to these students knowing about Pakistan?
I'm very excited and also surprised to know that they actually really research a lot. Looks like they have a lot of good information. Like you just mentioned, that looks like they had some. I never knew actually UN has that much information on their site. It looks like they're on the right track, and from me, it's just good luck to you guys and to doing all this great job. But also, once I will be very interested if once they are done with their research and all this. So I really want to know what their outcome was and what they found out and how did it go.
Okay.
So I will be interested in that. So I hope we can stay in touch and.
Sure. Yeah, so don't forget us. So, so okay, Haika. So, any advice you have for these your fellow students?
You guys' research was like amazing. I didn't even know half this information, so it's like good to know. Because I'm part of like the Pakistani student board at my school, and all this information I really did not know. So it's like, thank you so much. I'm like learning a lot. But good luck to you guys. You guys seem like you will really enjoy it, and just good luck.
Okay, very good. And you too.
So I didn't know half the information either. Even though I majored in government and national politics, I focused more on the legal side. But even here in their experiences on Philippines, like I was not introduced to that information or topic when I was learning undergrad. They focus more so on Germany and France and post-Soviet, pre-Soviet, but like the Philippines, like we never touch based on. So I mean, their information sounds pretty solid to me.
Very
I
nice.
wish them best luck.
Okay, well, good luck to you all. Emphasize to everyone to, I think Pakistan has really done amazing job with some of those planting trees. We call tree tsunami. They have planted more trees, I think, than any country. So, which is great. And I think we talked a little bit about these new energies, resources, nuclear. I think somebody talked a little bit about nuclear power. You had some interest about. So why the nuclear power? When I looked at some of the reviews from people here, they are afraid of nuclear power. Although it is, one of the best. If you look at, if you have a nuclear reactor, and if you do the nuclear power generation, it is really very cost effective, much better than solar or anything. So why there is fear about nuclear power?
I think part of the reason is the events of Chernobyl and what happened in Japan is causing a lot of fear. But ultimately, that just points to the necessity of the United Nations to help make sure that nuclear power is implemented on a global scale through setting standards of practice to make sure that those facilities are secure and maintained to the proper extent,
Yeah.
so you can mitigate disasters like Chernobyl and Hiroshima, not
Yeah.
Hiroshima, but Fukushima in Japan. So I think that just points to the necessity of the UN. People have a lot of fear because of history, but the reason why those were enacted is because we didn't have these universal regulations and standard norms that go along with their implementation. So, Toby, do you have something to add to that?
Mainly what I wanted to add is that is the main thing. There is no logistical problem holding back nuclear power other than public fear over the incidents that have happened in the past. That's the primary motive for not establishing more nuclear power generators, is because people are afraid that it's going to blow up in their country, which is a reasonable fear. But when you actually look at the statistics, the way forward all points to nuclear, but we're so scared to embrace something, even though it's the solution to everything we're talking about.
Also, I just wanted to add that I think maybe the fear could also be because even if there are restrictions laid by the United Nations, not every country is bound to follow them. And there are countries that will go ahead and cross all their all the how would I put it, all their way, they go out of their way and use it for the bad purpose. And so I think that's what scares people the most. Like you said, World War II was a disaster, and that did leave footprints in people's minds. And so yeah, I think even if the UN did do a pretty good job in laying out the foundation, I think there are a few countries that would still fail to oblige. And so I think that's something we need to take a deeper look into.
Okay. And everybody is, I'm sure, excited about space, all these space innovations and travel. So everybody looking forward to one day spending some time up in Mars.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, and I think that's where the nuclear power will probably help. If we have nuclear power generated or whatever, and then we can really travel far. But otherwise, to carry the fuel up that far is nearly impossible.
I think a big problem also, now that I think of it, is also you have the nuclear waste problem, that we don't know how to effectively dispose of that as of now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Right.
they're digging holes in Finland at the moment to try and like deal with all the current nuclear waste. So that is an actual problem.
Nuclear waste contaminate the ground and the water table.
Yeah, so what they're doing, a lot of nations is, some nations are building concrete boxes underground with 100-foot, don't quote me on the number, but I think it's like 100-foot thick concrete walls, and putting their nuclear waste in there so it doesn't leak into groundwater and stuff like that. But we still haven't found an effective method to contain that. And then I know there's also worries, Teresa touched on it, that a country could say that they're developing nuclear energy for peaceful uses and then also turn around and use that for enrich uranium and develop expertise in that area to develop a nuclear arms program. And then there is, and you can debate the legitimacy of this point, but there also is a point to be said for people who say that the nuclear waste, like in particular the nuclear fuel rods, are easily used in nuclear weapons, and there's a threat of terrorist groups potentially getting access to those materials and wreaking havoc. Whether you buy that is a different story, but that's also out there.
Well, when we talk about pollution, I think we are really very unsuccessful even in getting rid of plastic. So forget about nuclear. You know, these plastics which are ruining our ecosystem here and everywhere, right? Yeah, I think there's not enough methods for right now. So nuclear is far. So also I want to ask important question. I'm sure you all studied Pakistan well, and any other nations which got independence at the same time. What do you think was lagging in Pakistan that all other parameters they didn't make up to those numbers?
Could you repeat the question?
So I'm sure there are other nations kind of got their independence at the same time, 47, okay? And between 47 and now, so there are other nations which are far above economically or whatever criteria you use. So why is that, do you think Pakistan lack that number or success?
I think, in my personal opinion, I think it's honestly just execution, because the thing about Pakistan is if you look at the research documents, you look at everything, you have a lot of brilliant minds.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of really smart individuals with really great ideas. The issue is there are so many different options to attend to each problem that Pakistan sort of, it seems like they didn't know which route to take to best benefit.
Yeah.
The member state, which is understandable. You want to get the best benefit. So I think it wasn't means. Pakistan has, again, brilliant development. So it really was, in my opinion, just they didn't know what was the best route to take. And I think once they have a solid idea of that, which again the UN could help with that, especially just cooperative brainstorming of what would be the best route for each individual problem, I feel like that problem would be greatly reduced, because it's not the means. Pakistan has amazing scientists and other people. So I think once that's resolved, it shouldn't be an issue.
But to bounce off of that also, I think in many ways when it comes to Pakistan, like you said, it's not so much means, but execution of those means, largely because when it comes to all of those nations gaining independence at the same time, there was much more cohesion in the nations that succeeded better when they gained that independence, and Pakistan didn't seem to have that same sort of cohesion to latch onto and find one forward direction. There were many different directions, and they had issues picking the one with which to take. And I think that's somewhat still the problem that Pakistan is facing in the status quo. And I think strong cohesion would help them greatly in future growth.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things with Pakistan is actually they have a lot of interesting perspectives, but the issue is they've tarnished their reputation on the international affairs table due to their backing of terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and the Mujahideen. The government backed them, and therefore they've lost kind of that legitimacy that although they have an interesting other opinion that is logical, they also have this kind of history that haunts them. And so they've kind of isolated themselves in that way, and it fails to implement some of those ideas that are really strong that Pakistan actually has. But not only that, but going more so toward the new Cold War. It's not a Cold War yet or anything, but with China and the Belt and Road Initiative, they've kind of cut off their support from the United States in a way, because they're in an interesting position where they play both sides, trying to do the same thing. Where I'm on the Philippines High Political Forum, they're doing the same thing right now. So it's kind of an interesting time in human history, because you see this kind of balance of
Crossroads
constantly shifting.
And to add to that, I think it's not just Pakistan, but it is true of any newly independent nation.
Yeah.
I think the biggest problem is corruption.
Corruption,
Whether that be corruption in government, corruption in education, corruption in absolutely any field. I think once corruption gets hold of you, I think it becomes very hard for the country to progress, because the middlemen take so much of their resources that there's nothing left to, like you said, put into action. So I think any form of corruption, I think once it takes hold of a country, it's very hard to go. So I think Pakistan did unfortunately fall into that trap, which many other nations.
Yeah, many other.
Yeah.
And so I think there's another side which I think you all probably know, that is that a lot of nations were using Pakistan and other nations for their purpose.
Yeah.
So they put money and they do all kind of experiment there. So they don't want to get the burn. So like for Afghanistan or other nations, they try to defeat USSR, Russia, through that route, but it backfired. All the casualties, everybody who died defending them, they got burned. They got all those casualties. They got and so many people died there because of all that. But nobody is going to they are far away from here, US, and they'll say, okay, well, done is done. They're not going to pay them anything, right? So.
I completely agree with you. And when it comes to suffering, I think the people that suffer the most is the general Pakistani middle class people.
That is true.
Because they have absolutely nothing to do with the terrorism, or they have nothing to do with the government.
That's
because
true.
they're just minding their own business. But because the government sort of supports or backs the terrorist organizations, I think the people of Pakistan really suffer.
That's true.
With no fault of their own.
No fault.
And so I think this puts all of them into a very, a very weird situation where the people are innocent, but they're, even in the US, if I may talk about it, racism comes from, racism is acted on all those innocent people who have nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
And they're and racism occurs in a way where they're trying to take revenge of someone else on someone else.
That's true.
So I think that's where it all stems from. A few people ruin it for everyone.
That's true. So that is the lesson is, most of people, middle class or poor class, they have no idea.
Yeah.
So, and then they get all the blame and everything. So that's also true. Well, thank you for sharing all that great thought. Hi, this is Dr. Moby with Lifestyle TV, and today we have great guest Lamia, and we're gonna discuss some of the situation in Pakistan. Of course, with all the students, you'll see that clip later. And then thank you for coming and watching this show. Take care.
Thank you, bye.
Here is Lamia. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dr. Moby, first of all. Thank you so much for hosting these brilliant minds.
Yeah, I can see that.
They are really amazing, and from Texas Tech. And I'm really feeling very honored as a faculty advisor to lead this young group, to lead actually this young delegation. And this is their first time that they are representing Pakistan from Texas Tech University at the UN Model Conference in Washington, D.C. And like I have seen them working day and night preparing all the debates and speeches, and I was like really impressed the way they were taking like so serious. It was not like a only model simulation or the UN thing for them. It was something that they were like part of it. So when they were like coming here, I thought like, why not they're representing Pakistan? So let's, just kind of like, see the community and see how the culture is before representing Pakistan. So thank you so much, Dr. Murphy, for doing this. I'm really grateful, and these guys are really grateful too.
Yes, no, it was pleasure knowing and a really hard-working group.
They
so,
did.
yeah.
They actually took almost a month to prepare for this conference, and day and night they were like debating and they were preparing for their speeches.
Very nice, very nice. Welcome, Dr. Rauf. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Dr. Moby, by the way, for your gracious hospitality. We all are very impressed that you hosted a big group of people from Texas Tech University. And it also shows, it represents the true and remarkable hospitality of Pakistani society and Pakistani diaspora here. So thank you very much for doing that.
Okay, and any advice for the students you have?
So advice for the students is like we have to think global. We have to go beyond now. We cannot afford to live in isolations and little silos. And the whole purpose of United
अचानक नदीम भाई कैसे हैं ठीक ठाक?
Thank you, Dr. Mubashir. आपने आज हमको बुलाया. It's very nice of you and really appreciate your hospitality. कि आपने students को बुलाया हुआ है और हमें भी इसने बुलाया हुआ है ताकि we will be able to enjoy their company and understand their talk and everything. So आप बताइए.
Tell me, what do you think about where we are and where we should be going as a Pakistan, as a nation?
Pakistan as a nation it's like it's right now, it's, as you can see, the political arena in this country is not doing well, in a way that people are not letting Imran Khan do what he wants to do, because इससे पहले जो भी जितनी हुकूमतें आई आपको उन लोगों ने जो काम को इतने खास नहीं किए, लेकिन जो इमरान खान जो है is trying to do something, and I think it will take some time. And people are trying to, also wants to have a change and wants to have something different, and he's trying his best to get things done, and obviously it will take some time. And future, I would say, future of Pakistan, I think I can see is a very bright future, because we are expecting good things from Imran Khan. So that's what I think about it.
Okay, thank you, Nadeem. I'm just taking picture. What are these? These are, complicated names. Burfi, Laddu, Gulab Jamun. So they are different names. They're basically made from sugars, flour, and so they're different colors and taste to it. So.
Yeah, they're made with sugar, and sugar, and more sugar. That's all you need.
How do you keep track of all these ingredients?
But I don't think it's, maybe one has not.
Wrong. I'll make a point of coming back, and then she.
Yeah, no, keep watching Lifestyle TV. Yeah, but you say we are from Texas Tech.
We are from
We're from Texas Tech,
and you need to keep watching Lifestyle TV.
Yeah. One more thing to ask you all. So my advice to you all is to, if you really want to study Pakistan, is study the food culture, food. So then you'll understand Pakistani nation better. Have anybody worked on the food part?
I've been working since the day I was born.
Okay.
Eating.
Eating.
Yep.
Anybody else can name a single dish?
Oh, no. I know the sweets were very complicated names. I do remember
Yeah, the
that.
sweets had complicated names, but I tell you, very, very good flavors. I will give you that.
Naan, a staple.
Naan
is the
incredible.
bread. Okay, very good, very good.
The curry was phenomenal.
the tandoori chicken.
Tandoori chicken, yes, tandoori chicken is good.
Chicken Karachi.
Chicken curry, okay. So I think you all should kind of try to learn actually any culture, you can learn more about their food and then work backwards, knowing the people actually. That's really. So my advice is, now this is tea, chai, so it is really pretty good, better than even coffee. So you'll like that, so right.
It's good.
I love it.
Very good.
And any questions you all have about Pakistan you think should know more about?
A lot of the questions would take much too long.
Okay.
For this discussion, right?
Okay. Well, we can ask. We can try to at least answer some.
Well, I just asked you about your perspective as a Pakistani on the conflict in Kashmir.
Oh, okay.
Because there's so many conflicting narratives, it's so hard to pick off. But that's what I'm saying. It's these aren't simple issues to talk about, you know.
No, that's simple. I mean, problem is, it's very simple. This was Kashmir was one part. Somebody just divided it and created this all conflict.
Well, the Britishers are to be blamed.
Yeah, British are exactly.
Yeah.
So they just wanted. So blame it on the Queen. Blame it on the.
It's not big, but the solution
Oh.
is the question. I think now after that, because actually it could have been solved then. Now it's very different.
Because there comes a point where, with time, possession is forgotten, but emotion is remembered.
Remember.
And so now both parties feel very strongly about them being, it being their part. So maybe somewhere the truth has been lost, but the emotions go on.
Yeah. And also a lot of people, when I say people in political parties, they're taking advantage of this. They also don't want this to be resolved because they're actually stores or shops or
profiteers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whenever they have to resolve something or they have bigger issues, they bring this issue on up and they say, see, we can get it. So I think a lot of people are getting benefited from it.
And when a lot of people ask me, I say, look at Canada versus US. I mean, I know you all been to Detroit area, right? So people across Detroit and across Canada, they all feel different. I mean, it's just across the border, right? But if you ask them, then they'll say we are proud Canadian, and they'll say we are proud US, right? So, but that's how it is. Very simple. You draw the line, and then you create those two. Same stands for Kashmir. So they divided into two. There was no need, but now even is the same population on both sides. Then that's where the problem starts. So I think if there were no countries or there were no lines, like I think Europe did try to do United Europe, right? So what was the outcome? Brexit, right? Right. So that's the problem.
So you're saying that eventually the feeling of patriotism takes over?
No, I'm saying is that a lot of division you see nowadays everywhere. It's not Kashmir. It's in different countries. Same thing. People become territorial once you divide them into different and you give them names and they feel proud of that area only. I mean, I remember a lot of people I knew, they did not travel out of their small city even across the bridge. They say we won't even date a girl across the bridge because they thought people are territorial. Yeah, that's my impression. It could be wrong, right?
I actually agree with you, and in this context, I think the whole concept of this territorial thing is brought up by politicians because they want points over people's emotions, and so what they do is I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Max. Like Max said that politicians bring up these issues to hide somewhere their own lacunas, that some things that they have not done. So to hide that, they bring up sensitive issues, and people only focus on them. And so I think that's every politician right there.
No, I was surprised. I did my residency in Pennsylvania, and I had patient. I would ask them, "Have you gone to that town?" And they said, "No, we don't like to, and we don't want to."
Yeah.
Okay, and to me it was surprised because I go do shopping all the time across the town, but they said no. We lived all our 90 years here, and we'll live next 90 years here. Sorry. We are not crossing the bridge.
There's also an innate threat that human beings pose to each other when it comes for resources. They think that there's only limited resources, so everyone is trying to grab them, and so that somewhere creates a lot of tension.
That's true. Yeah.
I think this is basic human nature.
That's basic.
I think, That's our season.
So look, that's what you get if you successfully do the interviews, right?